Hi guys, Yone. Hi Mikhail. Hi Shweta. Nice to see you. I
Hello,
hope
folks.
you're in a good mood, but early in the morning. So everybody is ready. Do you have any question?
Oh, yeah, I have a question. Today we will have another one talk about visual testing. Sergey, do you familiar with testing of front end?
Not really. Of course, I need to do some JavaScript website testing, and from visual point of testing, I'm mostly familiar with UI. UI testing written on Java or JavaFX. So I'm really interested to hear how professionals are working on front-end testing and visual testing as well. So Shweta, can you please describe how you came out with this talk? What made you think about it?
Yeah, so thank you for the warm welcome, firstly. So at Accelerant, we primarily work on building Drupal applications, Drupal web applications. And I would say 98% of the times we have a requirement wherein our client wants the site to look visually perfect on several browsers and devices, right? And to add, like, it's not just the phone or tablet, but then there are several other versions within iPhone, then within tablet, then Android phone, and all of that. So the task to verify this particular UI or the website. So the testing phase, that was getting time consuming. Also, plus the QA team was heavily bored of verifying the same UI again and again on
Yes,
several
yes.
browsers and devices, right? It wasn't challenging for them at all. And so such repetitive tasks should be left to automation, and that's
Right.
how we thought of exploring this. And almost 5 years ago I started reading about visual regression testing. That time, back then, there were hardly any tools in the market, and the topic was fairly new. And I started exploring it, and I started trying it out only locally on my machine, just to optimize my testing efforts. But then there are so many sophisticated tools out there in the market today that you can go beyond just local testing, so that the entire team can benefit out of it. Of course, all of this, the outcome is that there is continuous delivery, there is faster delivery, and there are more confident releases when it comes to UI, at least.
Yes, continuous delivery is a like big thing nowadays, and everybody want to do everything faster, better, and stronger, including testing. And UI testing is famous for being slow and tedious. So automation of it is a very important task. So, what do you think? How much faster it became after you switched from like manual verification to automation? It's like 10 times faster, 100 times faster.
Okay, so I'm yet to come out with those numbers, but there is this project that we are working on currently, wherein the first two release were all tested only by humans. So there was no automation involved there. And now we have introduced automation completely. And what we are doing is that we have started automating at the UI level only. So what happens is that you don't need to write functional assertions at all, because your UI is also in a way going to validate your functional assertions.
Mhm.
And also, when you talk about how many times it got faster, that depends on what you have really automated, how much you have
Right,
really automated,
right, right.
right?
It's
If you're
always a
just going to
trade-off.
automate it using Chrome, then probably your efforts are reduced somewhat, but not exponentially, because you still have to test on, say, Firefox, Edge, Safari, and there are
Hmm.
mobile devices as well. So in order to have that return and have that speed increase exponentially, you obviously have to leverage automation for all browsers and devices. Only then it's going to be useful. Otherwise, it's still helpful to optimize the testing efforts. But then when you are using a tool, then why not explore it to its complete potential?
Yes, right. If you automated one things when applying it to all areas sounds like a logical step. So okay, I think we may need to start moving to a talk just for our audience. We have a talk in the form of video right now because it's like very international talk, so we didn't want any interruptions. But Shweta will be online and will be answering all questions, especially at the selected session at the end. So stay tuned, and can we have a video, please?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my talk on advanced automated visual regression testing. My name is Shweta Sharma, and I work as the Director of QA Services at Accelerant Technologies. I would love to connect with you on social media, so feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm located in India. Before I begin about the topic, I would like to quickly let you know about my organization, Accelerant Technologies. We are a completely remote working, fully distributed organization working across 6 time zones. We have been in the industry for over 10 years now, and I work with a bunch of 110 plus enthusiastic, kind, and open professionals, which also happen to be Accelerant's 3 core values. We have been associated with 150 plus partner engagements, and we highly encourage our people to contribute to open source through code, through blogs, and also presenting at events by giving talks like these. I would kindly request you to skim through the slide because this is what I'm going to be talking about for roughly 60 minutes or so. So kindly go through the agenda. So let's understand what is automated visual testing. So when you talk about visual testing, it is obvious that you test the user interface for the visual content. You check whether the page layout is correct. What I mean is the padding issues, the alignment, the font size, the font color, and so on. And we also test it for responsiveness across various breakpoints, tablet breakpoints, phone breakpoints. All of this is done when you talk about visual testing. So when you add the term automated, what it does it automates the verification of the same task. And before we even understand how this particular task can be automated, let's understand the need to automate it in first place so that we understand the real value of it when we are investing our efforts in this type of automation. The first happens to be the human factor. What I mean by human factor is there are two aspects to it. One is that the human eye is incapable of identifying any pixelated difference or anything, or you can say two colors, two similar colors of different hex codes would be perceived as one color to the human eye. So the first is the incapability of the human eye to figure out the difference itself. The second is when humans are involved in mundane and repetitive tasks like verifying the UI across several browsers and several devices, you tend to miss out on obvious bugs as well. That's human nature and you just cannot help it. The second is the larger device OS matrix and release cycles. How often do you have a requirement wherein the client comes to you and says that our end client base is huge, We need to have support on Safari, IE11, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and to add, we have gone mobile with technology. So the site needs to look perfect on various mobile devices, both phone and tablet, which leads to larger release cycles and hence to embrace continuous delivery with continuous testing. Automating this time consuming task is a must. Insufficient automated functional suite. Although we have automated acceptance tests, we have automated our end-to-end tests, but are these automated tests capable of identifying UI issues? No, unless you have invested heavily in writing assertions at the CSS level as well, which is extremely time consuming. When there are tools available in the market which can do this out of the box for you, why invest time wrongly, incorrectly? Fourth is the most important factor. Humans are best at understanding the usability of the applications, the accessibility of the application. Usable humans are best to understand what the end client really needs. Is that what the team is producing? So humans should be investing their time in these activities rather than working on repetitive tasks. Now let's understand how does the basic algorithm work for all tools available in the market. Any visual regression tool that you pick up, the automation algorithm works in the same fashion. When the test runner is first run, it's going to capture images of all your web pages that you have configured in your test, and it's going to store it as baseline images. On subsequent runs, what it does is it captures screenshots again at runtime and it compares it with the previously stored baseline images. There are going to be two outcomes after the comparison happens. Either the test passes or it's going to report differences. It's not going to fail the test. That's something that you need to take note of. It's just going to report differences. A human needs to be involved at this phase wherein we go ahead and check whether the difference reported was unintended or was it intended. If it was unintended, which means that it's a bug that the tool has highlighted correctly. If it was intended correctly, if it was intended and highlighted correctly, which means that probably there was a new component or element introduced in your web page, and you further now need to go ahead and update your baseline image so that the comparison happens with the right image, the updated image next time. Throughout our talk today, I'll be using the Urban Hipster site for demonstration, which is built on Drupal Commerce. Let's look at the demonstration using a tool named Backstop.js, which is going to demo the concept that I just explained. Using the command backstop reference, we are creating reference images or baseline images. If you see, I had configured the original test to capture the baseline images for desktop, phone, and tablet. And that's the reason it has captured 3 baseline images for desktop, phone, and tablet. This was the page that we configured, the category listing page for women. Similarly, we have a baseline image captured for phone. We are again going to run the test using the command backstop test. And now this is the test that is actually going to compare two images and report the results. All three tests have passed for desktop, phone, and tablet since the images in the reference column and the images in the test column matched exactly. And that's how you can create a simple test using Backstop.js. I wish, but our real projects were also this easy. That's not the case, and which brings us to discussing the primary challenges with automated visual validation testing. The first challenge is anti-aliasing. To simply describe it, the hardware configuration would vary or might vary from person to person in your team depending on what device they use. One person could be using a MacBook, the other person could be using an Ubuntu based Linux distribution. When the screenshots, when the baseline images are captured on a MacBook, and if the person having an Ubuntu machine runs it on their machine, there would be some false positives reported by these tools just because uh, there were pixelated differences between both these images. That's anti-aliasing in simple terms. The other challenge is dynamic content. The example that we saw, it had static content on the women's category listing page. However, if you have dynamic content, then your tool would definitely report differences. For example, you might have slideshows with multiple images. You might have ad blocks which are changing every 5 seconds. So we'll talk about how we can resolve these challenges. The resolution for anti-aliasing are use of Docker. If you use a Docker, everybody in your team uses a Docker. What happens is the environment is kept the same every time. So you do not run into possibilities or challenges of having different device setup. The second is running these visual tests on cloud solutions like Browser Stack, Sauce Labs, which you can configure in your tests and have these images captured every time on the same configuration. The third option is select a tool which handles it implicitly. We'll look at such a tool which would handle this challenge implicitly. I would quickly like to demo the dynamic content issue using Backstop.js. Here we've again run one of the tests, and we are seeing that the tests have failed. So this is the test for home page, and the tests have failed for desktop, phone, and tablet, all three. If you look at this diff, it says that there was some problem with the slideshow. But what actually happened was when the reference image, the baseline image was captured, the slideshow was on the second image. The application was on the second image of the slideshow, whereas when the test ran, the application was on the first image of the slideshow, and these two images were different. And that's the reason the screen has shown this pink colored box and the tool has screamed that there is some problem. But was this really a problem? just because the slideshows had two different images. The site looks visually perfect though, right? And all three tests have failed. This is what is the problem of dynamic content. Backstop.js has this feature of scrubber wherein you can slide through the scrubber and see where the difference is. And we've seen that the difference is between the two different images of the slideshow. So let's understand the resolution for handling dynamic content. You have a hide strategy and a remove strategy. What a hide strategy does is it's going to take in the array of selectors of the elements, selectors or locators, and it's going to hide all those elements that it's just going to mask those elements with a black space. So the next time you capture the screenshot, that element is not really the dynamic factor affecting your test results. Good candidates for hide are ad blocks, images that change, like the slideshow that we just saw. There's another strategy called remove. What remove does is that it completely removes that particular element from the DOM before capturing the screenshot. And the good candidates would be sticky headers or footers, popover help chat. You have to be extremely cautious of when you use hide and remove. Using remove when it's not appropriate would actually interfere with your testing results. So let's look at how Backstop.js has handled this particular dynamic content challenge. You would see that on line number 50, it takes in the array of selectors, and we've added the element locator at line number 51 for the homepage carousel slide. And now we're going to capture the baseline image. Again, this is how the new reference image looks like after we've added the hide strategy. The slideshow is completely masked with a black space. And this doesn't interfere with our testing results because the page layout is not changed here. If we would have used remove here, then the slideshow section would have been completely removed from the screenshot, and that would have been incorrect testing. Let's look at the demo after we have created new baseline images. We are rerunning the test for the home page after we've captured new baseline images using the hide strategy. Now, if you look, all three tests have passed, and there is absolutely no image captured in the slideshow, and that is no more the dynamic factor affecting our test results. This was a very simple way to handle dynamic content. The reference column and the test column show both same images, and that's the reason our test has passed. Talking about the testing strategy next, now that we've understood how this particular automated testing works, it's important that we talk about the strategy as well. Capturing screenshots. When would you be capturing element level screenshots? So in our demo, we've seen that we've captured the screenshot of the entire page, but all the tools also have a provision to capture screenshots at element level. Element level screenshots would be recommended when your development is still in progress, when you're building components, elements, or if you're using a component based library like Storybook, then element level screenshots certainly make sense. Otherwise, have a full page screenshot whenever you're going to compare two similar environments or the entire page is developed and ready to be tested. Plan the level of visual coverage needed. for both browsers and devices. Every project is different as our customers are different. Do you need all the browsers and all the devices for every project? No. Reach out to your clients, your customers to understand what do the statistics tell them. Identify patterns from your previously learned lessons. If you've observed that the web forms often break on IE11 or Edge, then plan the visual coverage only for those browsers, because most commercial visual tools would charge you for the number of screenshots that you capture. Additionally, it would also be time consuming to run all the tests on all browsers and all devices unless you do it in parallel. Application wide. Don't capture all pages in your application. Identify proper sampling uh, pages through sampling techniques and cover only those pages in your tests. Some good practices to follow. Organize your test suites into browser, feature, or device. Speed up your test execution by running these tests in parallel. If you have your own grid, that's good, or you can always take cloud based solutions for your help. Identify the frequency to run these visual tests. Do you need all visual tests to run on every pull request, every deployment, or every day? This frequency not only varies from team to team in the same organization, but this frequency might also differ from your development phase. If the page is being developed, then probably having visual tests run at every pull request would make sense. For a support and maintenance project, probably the visual test execution would make sense only when there is a change. Here is an example of how I've organized tests as per the browser. Creating suites. Creating suites again is extremely useful if you if you want to run your visual tests effectively and efficiently. For example, if you plan to run smoke tests on every build, then having these suites created are extremely helpful because this provision lets you quickly identify and configure your CI pipeline to run only smoke tests. If you have made changes only to the blog related features, then executing only the blog suite would make sense and it would be faster with this provision. Let's talk about how we integrated it in our development workflow. After the code was committed, the build was initiated, and due to our containerized DB approach, the data seeding happened at a faster rate. Once, once the Drupal site was up and running, we ran our acceptance tests using Cypress. Then the visual regression tests were run using Percy. And then further, these the site was deployed to stage and production environments subsequently. Coming to the challenges of implementing automated visual validation tests as part of your CI/CD pipeline. You would need to think on where would you be storing and maintaining your baseline images? What would be the comparison strategy when it comes to images? When you're working on the feature branch, how do the tests run and what are the images compared against? What happens once these tests are merged to master? When we were thinking about these challenges, tools like Applitools and Percy came to our rescue, which provide inherent support for bringing in your tests, automated visual tests in the CI pipeline. The actual implementation. This is a screenshot from one of our projects, Accelerant.com, which was built on Drupal. If you see, This particular snapshot is being captured by Percy, and it was configured to run across two browsers and across three different breakpoints. So we've ran it on Chrome and Firefox and three different browsers, three different breakpoints. Since this snapshot, this page, this test for home articles page was run for the first time, the tool says that it's a new snapshot, right? Which means this is going to be stored as the baseline image. When you rerun the tests, and if there are no differences reported by the tool, it says no visual changes. You run the test only once and you could view the results on both Chrome and Firefox and on different breakpoints. You need not run the tests several times on all these configurations. This is how the pipeline looked like. We've checked our Drupal code quality, our front-end code quality, and then we've ran our visual tests. This is a snapshot from our GitLab. This is something that you would be interested in. Were there any report differences or bugs reported by the tool? Yes. So if you look at this image, the footer, the padding between the footer and this text was missing, and that was rightly highlighted by the tool. The team could also collaborate by directly highlighting or annotating this section and let the team members know that there's a padding issue here. If you see, the padding issue is rightly highlighted by the tool. Further, when these issues are highlighted by the tool, we've also implemented Slack integration so that the entire team is notified about the build passing or the build failing due to visual changes. If there are visual, all sorts of notifications can be configured on Slack, whether there are visual changes, whether the visual changes need approval, and so forth. So here is a sample. What were the key results achieved by our team? Since the test data was handled in the database by using a containerized DB, our team did not really spend any time in writing scripts or test automation scripts for just creating data. Our test automation data and the assertions were kept completely separate. And because of the containerized database, our data was constant every time, which means that we did not run into the problem of dynamic content at all. And all we had to do was directly write visual tests and have results immediately. That's one huge advantage if you keep your data constant every time, if you rebuild your product, your site with a database, with a full-fledged database. Harmonious integration of automation tools involved. We used Cypress, we used Percy, which integrated well with each other. And these tools were further integrated well with GitLab, Slack, so that the entire team was kept aware. So it's important whenever you're using your or planning your tool stack, you check whether there is seamless integration available between all these tools. The visual tests that were validated were almost a replica of the wireframe because when we created the pages and populated the database, we kept it similar to the wireframe. Less number of assertions required for acceptance test. The number of automated acceptance tests that were written drastically came down because the visual tests did the job of validating the functionality as well. And we'll take a look at one such example. This is a small test, a simple test written for verifying the contact us form on Urban Hipster. If you look at this test, which is written in WebDriver IO, there isn't a single functional or acceptance test assertion written throughout the test. All we have done is on line number 20, we've validated that this after submitting the form, the the document or the submitted form or the page looks intact. You could have a similar visual test written even before submitting the form or after you filled in all the fields of the form. And this brings down the authoring time of your automated acceptance test down drastically. And this is also going to validate the UI along with the functionality. We've, we've spoken about the concept, the challenges, the possible resolutions, but we haven't spoken about the biggest limitation yet of all these tools. So far, the comparison that happened pixel to pixel, which might lead to irritating false positives. That is not always the case, but I have experienced it using the tools that I mentioned previously. So, is there a tool that handles this sort of limitation? Which brings us to Apply Tools. Apply Tools is one of the leading commercial tools in the market, and it handles the anti-aliasing inherently. Also, it doesn't do pixel to pixel based comparison. It has an AI driven based algorithm which does the comparison and the matching and brings out results to you. These are few highlighting points about Apply Tools. There are 40 plus SDKs available in Apply Tools, which means you need not scratch away your existing automated functional suite. If you have written your functional tests using Cypress, WebDriver IO, or any Selenium framework, then Apply Tools would be seamlessly integrated with your existing functional suite. They also have SDKs available for different programming languages and also for mobile application testing frameworks. Ultra fast cloud feature is something that would help you to test and run your visual tests across several browsers and devices that you would configure. And all of these would run in parallel, giving you results at ultra speed. Match levels. There are different match levels in Apply Tools that we will look at in one of the coming slides. There's better support for floating and dynamic content. You could also test your PDFs if you are working on an application that is heavy on PDF testing, then this tool would definitely come handy. There's support for mobile applications as well, as I mentioned earlier. Excellent baseline image maintenance. This can be one of the headaches if you are not using a tool that would support baseline image maintenance. You would not feel the pinch if your site is small when it comes to the number of web pages it has, but you would certainly feel the pinch when your site has a lot more number of UI pages. And then maintaining all those baseline images could be quite time consuming and tiring. It also has a highly collaborative dashboard. I do have some screenshots for highlighting this point as well. There's also a codeless solution available in the form of a browser extension. There's a Firefox and Chrome extension, browser extension available, which can be used easily with the Selenium IDE side extension. And so if you're not comfortable with coding or if you want to quickly try it out, go ahead and try the ApplyTools browser extension along with the side extension. It provides seamless integration with source control, build servers, and collaboration tools like Jira. They also provide free support for open source projects. If you have an open source project, feel free to reach out to them and they would be happy to support you for free. The match levels in ApplyTools. There's strict, there's content, and there's layout. Strict is the default match level, which is going to compare everything, like the way it is, the content, the font, the layout. It's just going to compare the two same sites, the two same images as it is. So this match level would work perfectly if your site is static, or if you have a strategy where you can rebuild the site with the same content again. Content match level is again very similar to strict. It's just that it's just going to compare the content, but it's going to ignore colors. If you have two sites which have the same content, but you can say the look and feel or the UI, the font colors, they differ, then content works very well for you. I have worked on such a site wherein the content was the same, but the UI differed. They just wanted some personalization depending on the region. Talking about layout, this match level also works perfectly when you have a site wherein the layout is same but the content changes. So I give an example of a digital news paper on a news site wherein the content changes every day, but the layout is similar, or at least the layout is from the templates, one of the templates. So testing your digital news site becomes super fast with the layout match level strategy. Let's quickly look at the ApplyTools demonstration. Here we viewed Cypress. Yeah, and before I proceed, the site that I've used for demonstration is Drupal Umami, which is again open source, and you can go to drupal.org and set up this site on your local to view this site. So this is built again on Drupal, and which is known as the Drupal Umami. And we have a very basic test here that's running. And this is the ApplyTools dashboard. So we've used the Cypress SDK provided by ApplyTools here, wherein the homepage is tested in Spanish and English language both. And it was just a simple test that we wrote. Navigate to both these pages and capture the screenshot. And this was done on this was captured for a desktop machine. Yeah. So talking about ApplyTools Ultrafast Grid, if you see in the screenshot, we've ran the homepage test across various devices, right? Like an iPad, iPhone, and we've ran these on the desktop on various browsers, which is Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge. So if you use the ultra-fast cloud or the ultra-fast grid feature from ApplyTools, the configuration is very simple. In your Cypress, Selenium, WebDriver, IO, whatever testing solution framework that you're using, the configuration is simple and easy. And the test runs once, and the screenshot or the actual verification happens across various devices and browsers, as you see. This is a screenshot from one of the hackathons that I had participated in by ApplyTools. If you see, This particular screenshot, it says it's talking about the filter results feature that I'm testing. When I filter the results on the first site, this is what I see on various browsers. Whereas when I rerun the test, of course, on a similar environment which was intended to have bugs, this is how the tool has highlighted the results. Now, this is not really a visual bug, it's a functional bug. And the tool has highlighted because it doesn't match the original baseline shot. And that's how you can quickly capture functional bugs as well without having to write any functional assertions, really. The dashboard is pretty collaborative, as I mentioned. You can clearly highlight the region, annotate the region using their annotations, and you can fail these tests and you can mention what was exactly the, the reason of failure, which is incorrect filter results were displayed. What it does is when you fail the tests, it's going to fail all the related tests, which means you need not go and fail all the other tests that were run on the iPhone, iPad, or any other browser, right? It has a feature when you can where you can go ahead and fail the test, and it's going to update all the relevant related images as well accordingly. Talking about these regions, you if you feel that there is any region which need not be considered while running your visual tests, then you can use these various region types, which is ignore region, floating region. You can go to their site and check the description. But these regions, they come in handy when you are dealing with dynamic content, basically. These are the match levels. So even after you have executed your tests, you can preview the match level and you can compare the execution results on their dashboard as well. Of course, you can set these match levels in your code. You can set it at the suite level. You can also set it at the test level as well. That brings us to this discussion now. When do we use what? If you have static content on your in your project, but then it's ton number of pages, you could really go ahead with any tool that's available. If you have dynamic content, then these are the tools that you could try. All of these, I think, except for Shuv, all of these are, yeah, except for Shuv, all of these are free to try. Talking about if the demand is heavy on various browsers, devices, and there's a lot of dynamic content, floating content, then I would highly recommend Apply Tools. Although it's a commercial tool, they have been doing brilliant job in providing automated visual validation solutions. Talking about some facts. As I mentioned earlier, if you are not using tools that provide support to maintain baseline images like Apply tools, then the efforts needed to maintain the baseline images is going to be considerable. This is not a silver bullet. Any new type of automation that comes in, people feel that it's going to solve all your problems. No, we need to respect the test pyramid. You need to have tests at code level. You need to test your web services and you need to have visual tests. Do not skip your acceptance tests whenever it is needed, when something cannot be validated visually. So respect the entire testing pyramid. Follow the best practices in automating visual tests. Ensure full page validation because if you're just going to validate the components, when these components are integrated, you need to understand have they integrated well enough on the UI. Do not have too many element specific tests, as I mentioned earlier, because in case the locator changes, then there would be too much of element locator maintenance. The general rules for automating any type of tests, right? But in particularly acceptance tests, they apply here as well. You need to pick up the right candidates for automation. There need to be logical division of tests and usage of seams. Yeah, try to focus on getting to the automation point, to the assertion point as soon as possible. If you've heard of the arrange, act, and assert pattern, then ensure that the arrange part is done as soon as possible through other means and not through UI. And the last is, do not expect any kind of overnight success with this automation as well. It needs to start from one person, then it needs to spread within the team, and then bring these tests in your CI pipeline. Start implementing these tests on your local machine first, then start committing it to the repository. Where to go from here? If you do not have any coding knowledge, then you can use many configuration based tools like Backstop.js, Wraith, and the ApplyTools side browser extension. You can pair up with developers, SDETs, and let them understand the most meaningful tests so that they can go ahead and write the visual tests by collaborating with you. If you are good with coding, then look for harmonious integration with your automated functional suite, which means that you need not throw away your existing functional suite. Look for a tool that can seamlessly integrate with your existing functional suite. You'll have to cut down or remove the unwanted functional assertions now after you've added the valuable visual tests, right? Otherwise, there's no point because then you wouldn't be saving on the execution time. And be brave and bring these tests in your CI pipeline so that the entire team benefits out of your technical knowledge. Here are some important references that you can take back. You can refer to these references when you plan to learn and implement this solution in your organization. And I'm ready to take any questions now. Thank you.
Hi guys, Shweta, thanks. Thanks for the nice speech. So, Mikhail, can you please maybe translate like most interesting question from the chat?
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. It was nice and a great talk. We don't have a number of questions for now, but we'll see. Maybe while discussion about your talk, we will receive more of them. First of all, how many images do you have in your test suite?
Well, that really depends on the application size, right?
Mhm.
But irrespective of that, if you have a youth site, then you would have a lot more pages. And recently, we had a site coming in for support and maintenance, which had around, I think, 400 pages. But I spoke of the sampling technique, right? You need not have visual tests for all 400 pages because out of those 400 pages, the pages belong to a certain type of template. So what you need to have is you need to have one test for each template type so that you are actually verifying the template and not the production page. That's the clever strategy because if you're going to have visual tests for all 400 pages and if you're using a commercial tool, then your price is really going to go high.
Okay, I see. But in average project, for example, you decided to invent visual testing in some view. average project when a customer would like to pay for that? And how many images will we have in this kind of project?
So you are saying that the customer would like to pay for the product, and okay, the customer is ready to pay for the product, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
about the price, right? One thing we also need to understand is how fast we are going to receive feedback of the application, right? So I would still say, even if you have the customer ready to pay for, say, all 400 pages, but say out of 400 pages, 100 pages are about the article landing page. Do you really need to have all tests for all 100 article landing pages? No, I mean, all article
Yeah,
landing
that's true.
pages are going to have a similar layout. We don't need that, right? If say out of 100 article landing pages, say these are created out of 10 templates, I would still go ahead and say have tests for those 10 templates, right? Because it's also about how faster this automation suite is going to provide feedback about your application. Price is secondary.
Okay, thanks. I see. And next one question: in case of backstop.js, does browser update leads to image difference?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you. And
not something that I have noticed, and it's also that Backstop JS is not something that we use heavily. Backstop JS is something
mhm,
that I always recommend for beginners to just understand the concept and try something locally. But Backstop JS is not
mhm,
something that we use heavily, really.
mhm, mhm. What challenges in your work environment forced you to dig into visual testing?
So we definitely, as I mentioned earlier, we embrace continuous delivery and continuous integration, and um, all of our clients, literally all of our clients, have this requirement of having the site visually perfect on across various browsers and devices. And even if it's not a client requirement, as part of the basic package, we definitely support our application on a certain number of browsers and devices. And the cost is just going to add if you do not have automated tests, right? Cost in terms of time, in terms of having more people. If you look at the longer term solution, having automated tests, if done in the right way, of course, is a more affordable solution when it comes for the organization, and when it comes to also providing value to your customers. So these are
Mhm,
the
mhm.
reasons why we highly embrace having automation at all levels, really. It's not just about visual tests, or it's not just about having acceptance tests, it's also at unit tests. And we also have automation in terms of, like, if someone's done a certification, we have a bot coming up saying, giving them a reminder that go ahead and add your certification to this particular document. So we have automation done for even the smallest things in our organization.
Oh, nice. By the way, speaking about acceptance testing, why did you choose WebDriver IO for your UI automation?
So WebDriver IO is not our only choice. It really depends on the project. So the project that that I was currently working on was heavy on testing payments. So it was really a
Mhm.
payment gateway interface testing. So our first choice is usually Cypress, but when it comes to having multiple domains in the project, Cypress is not good at handling that. Hence WebDriver IO, and plus the project also had a lot of React components, and so we wanted to go ahead with a JS based testing framework solution. And WebDriver IO has good support, and we've had previous success with WebDriver IO, so we went ahead with that. And we were also not sure of what automated visual solution the client would be going ahead with. So we knew that WebDriver IO has this free visual regression service available, which I have already tried. So that's why we went ahead with that solution, so that even if the client is not okay with the commercial tool, we still have this free solution available with this. We do not have to scrap the tool entirely, right? The testing framework. So a lot of thought process happens, a lot of thoughts go in whenever we are going to begin test automation in any project, right? We consider all the possibilities, and then we select a tool. Now the client has also agreed for a commercial tool. We don't have to move away from WebDriver IO, because WebDriver IO has the seamless integration with this commercial tool as well.
Mhm, mhm. I have another question about choosing right tools for your environment, for your test stack. From your experience, what are benefits in using cloud infrastructure for visual testing compared to self-hosted on your machine? Or maybe, yeah, or maybe, yeah.
So there are several benefits. One is, as I mentioned earlier, the environment stays same for the entire team, right? So if you're using the configuration for, say, Browser Stack or Sauce Labs or, say, AWS Device Farms, and you've configured your configuration file to run these visual tests on i11 and a particular version of Windows, say 10, 8. We had this requirement recently where we had to run the visual tests on Windows 10 and 8 both. And so what happens is the environment remains the same, irrespective of whether, and all your team members can then run these tests, right? Just because the test suite is integrated with cloud. Another thing that I observed is that these tests run in parallel on cloud, right? So that solution is also available on cloud. And when it comes to maintenance of the infrastructure, that is not your headache, because these solution providers are going to take care of that.
You're right, but it's usually more expensive.
It is, but then if you so quality is not cheap. So I would not say that go ahead with cloud completely. That's what I'm saying, right? You have to identify your goal. What is your goal? Is your goal to optimize your existing testing efforts? If that is your goal, then using these free tools and having these automated tests running only on a couple of browsers works also for your team, because the goal is to optimize testing effort. But if you're working with big clients, right, who are ready to provide, who are ready to take these solutions, buy these solutions because they want perfect, fast delivery every time, then I think as a service providing company, it is our job to give them or present them those solutions at least, and then it is their call.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. By the way, you mentioned a number of visual testing tools. What is your favorite?
I have to say it is Apply Tools. Although it's a commercial tool, although it is a commercial tool, but the kind of work that they have done with automated visual testing, their dashboard and all, it's simply awesome. If the client is going to provide money, I can showcase all the features to them, and it's too much. It's like less headache for the team, and also I would say that when so the price doesn't go high when you have lots of browsers and devices. The investment, so the return on investment is actually high in these tools.
Oh, yeah. Nice. We are here. We had a kind of problem, connection problems, but now I can hear it. I see a point about Apply tools. Yesterday we had a talk on our conference from a main contributor and maintainer of visual regression testing. It's a tool, and the talk was about this tool. It's a free alternative to Apply tools. Have you heard about it before?
Can you name the tool, please?
Visual regression tracker.
No, I haven't heard about it, but I read it in the conference note, so I would try it out for sure. Uh, and there are other tools as well, like Diffie, and there's this one tool from Storybook as well. Oh, I just forgot the name. So that
Merci.
so no, not Percy. There's one from Storybook as well. It's by the Storybook creators and maintainers themselves. So
Okay.
yeah, I would definitely try it out and see, because what happens is I usually read about it that this tool is similar to this tool. But I'm telling you my actual experiences. But when I actually go ahead and try those tools, I run into problems. So that happened with a tool recently last week, wherein we saw that the tool claimed to have seamless integration with Drupal and all, but when we tried it, it did not work, and we actually opened a bug with the tool.
Oh yeah. Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's connected with the infrastructure that you use for providing services for your clients. Yeah, I see. It's important. I agree. By the way, is there any chance to use mentioned tools with not only with JavaScript but also with Java, Python, and other programming languages?
So for visual testing,
Yes, for visual testing.
I do not know of any other tool, but as I mentioned, Apply Tools provides several language SDKs. So they have SDKs.
Mhm,
So if you are using, say, the Selenium library with Java, then Apply Tools has a SDK for these. SDKs are free to use, by the way, right? These SDKs are
mhm,
free to
mhm.
use. You can create a free account with Apply Tools, and but I think that's the only solution provider which would have SDKs for the language of your choice. I don't know of any other tool.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
okay, I
you
see.
would run
I
into
mean,
a limitation, then you would just, when it comes to, yeah, WebDriver, Ion, these are all JS based actually. So,
that's true, but for example, in Russia, JavaScript is not the most popular language for testing. Usually, it's Java, Python, C Sharp sometimes, but JavaScript just growing his popularity, and it's important for people, to understand. Are they able to use it right now today, or firstly they have to learn JavaScript and the basics and all the stuff connected to that? So.
no, you don't have to. And as I mentioned, there are, see, these configuration based tools available as well, right? Wherein you don't have to write any JS code as such, right? There is just this config file available, wherein you can just list down the URL of the page that you want to capture the screenshot, and then you just need to run the test the command. So you don't have to write a single JS line if you're using, say, config based tools like Wraith, Backstop JS. No, you don't have to write a single code line of code there.
Okay, I see. Thanks. When we use UI testing, for example, test written with Selenium, we have to spend a lot of time to maintain tests. What about visual regression testing? How many efforts do you spend on maintenance of visual regression tests compared to creation of tests?
That's a good question, and so that really depends on what phase your project is in. So, say if your front end development is still in progress, right, and that also varies because front end development itself has become so dynamic. Are you using a component library, or is it just the traditional front end development using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? So that really depends on how your front end development stack is. But see, if the development is in progress, then you definitely need to capture and have tests at the element level, as I mentioned. So, say for example, the header is developed, right? Have your front end tests for the header written, because if the header breaks anytime or the footer breaks anytime, you have the feedback immediately. But once, say, these header and footer is integrated on the home page, wherein the banner is created and the rest of the sections on the home page are created, you don't really need to have the element level test that you had written for header and footer. You definitely have to remove those tests because they do not make any more sense here to have. And if you're just going to execute them, then the time is going to increase. So that's how happens. So you need to have maintenance for visual tests as well. And in visual tests, it's more about maintaining the baseline images that I mentioned earlier, right? So say, yeah. So say for
I
example,
mean, but
you,
sorry. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, so recently in one of our projects, what happened was the budget for having automated visual tests got approved later. Like, already when we had written a lot of automated functional tests. But then I did definitely strongly recommend to my team member to go ahead and delete the irrelevant automated functional tests now, right? Because the visual tests had come into picture. So when it comes to maintenance, that way the maintenance is low because you are not focusing on any HTML level or the markup level tests, right? The way you do it in functional tests, right? The functional test is so heavy on DOM. That's not the case with visual tests. You just give the URL and the screenshot is captured.
But roughly, maybe it's 10% or maybe less. I mean, maintenance and creation of the tests.
I would not be able to come up with the number, but then it depends on your project. If you have a support and maintenance project, then I would say then the maintenance would be way less than 10%, right? Because your project is
Okay.
all created ready, and all you have to do is just run the tests, say on every new feature that is coming in. That's it.
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, thanks. I'm not sure, but maybe it's going to be our last question in this section, and then we can go further to Zoom meeting, and Zoom link is already provided. But the question is, do you miss visiting offline conferences these days?
Definitely. I mean, the screen fatigue and the anxiety that comes in whether you're going to have a strong internet connection throughout your talk and all. And that's the reason I preferred having a recorded talk over. Online is good, but then the networking part is something that you definitely miss out on. And human to human interaction, there is really no match that way. But I really miss those physical conferences, really. I've been sitting
Yeah,
on
is
this
it
chair
something?
like over
Yeah,
2 hours now. Yeah, and that's so the screen fatigue is just too overwhelming.
yeah, that's true. Isn't it strange to sit in front of your laptop or maybe PC at home and uh, pretending that a lot of people are looking at you, but you don't know exactly
Yeah.
how
And
many people
especially
are
when
there.
it comes to me, I'm a person who likes to interact with people. I love to see a hall full of people. That really brings the best out of me as a speaker. This is like, I'm
Okay,
just
great.
talking to camera.
Yes, that's true. So in this case, we definitely will invite you to create a new one. Oh, I see our host. We definitely invite you to send new one submission for the further conference that we will have in offline in St. Petersburg or in Moscow. We will happy to see you there.
Yeah,
Sure, it would be
definitely
my
agree.
pleasure.
Yeah, unfortunately, my appearance means we are running out of time. But I remind everybody what we will continue in the Zoom conference right behind this video. Uh, Please join. Please enable your camera so we can nicely chat and like in good offline conference. Thank you very much for the great speech. Hey,
Thank you.
bye bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.